Beetlejuice is lost on Acre, and the Red Rooms are getting a Firebrand. I'm Van Connor.
And I'm Adam Ball, and this is Offscreen, your 7-day guide to everything movies.
Boom.
Hello and welcome back to Offscreen. It is a fresh week and we have got a load of fantastic movies to talk about. Well, I hope they're fantastic. Anyway, we're about to find out with Van Connor in a moment. We got Acre. We're going to look at the new Beetlejuice movie, Firebrand as well in a moment. But first, let's start with a horror thriller mystery crime, or that's what it's billed as anyway. It's called Red Rooms. It is out in cinemas from today. Talk to me, Van.
Yeah, I mean, arguably horror movie, to be fair, but it is like a psychological drama more than anything, I think, at this foremost. So this is set and filmed in Quebec. So it's French language subtitles. Original title is, imaginative enough, Le Chambre Rouge. So direct translation, Red Rooms. The Red Rooms of the title refers to so-called red rooms on the dark web in which young girls are tortured and eventually killed, and in between all sorts of other horrible things as well.
Oh, what? And that's real? That actually happens?
It's a sort of thing that we accept to happen somewhere in the world. You know, like the
right.
plot of the movie Taken, like what you imagine the reality of the movie Taken would be.
Got ya.
Exactly like that. So this centres around a trial of a man, Monsieur Chevalier, who has been accused of killing 3 young girls, 3 underage schoolgirls in this sort of a setup. And it involves a young sort of influencer model type who becomes obsessed with this trial, goes along to like watch it as a witness, gets in a ballot every day so that she can be in the audience to watch this trial unfold, and starts to find herself perversely drawn into it, becoming kind of obsessed with it, becoming so completely hyperfixated on nothing but this that she starts to psychologically deteriorate in every other which way but loose, and she starts to bring her own world folding in on her as she starts to do more and more depraved things, pursuing this story and this obsession. It's fantastic. I'm not going to lie. It's really depraved. It's imagine someone going like full single white female on the story on this kind of a trial. It plays like that. I was really drawn in by it. It's very stylish. It's very cool. It's got a very a very sexy sort of aesthetic to it when it goes for these kind of glorious like night neon lit kind of apartment shots and things like that. And then you get to the cold sterility of like the courtroom, things like that. It's perfectly captured. It's a really well told story, and the central performance here. I'm sorry, I missed my names up here. It's Juliette Garipay, who plays Kellyanne the model. The way that she plays it, it's pitch perfect in that as she starts to slide deeper and deeper into this, it's amazing how far you'll go with the character before you then start to go, oh no, honey, stop. It's amazing that the sort of things that can seem so effortless and so natural in this continuing sort of psychological deterioration, she plays it pitch perfectly. Like I say, I was a really, really big fan of this. I know you're not a subtitled guy, but I think genuinely this would keep you on the edge of your seat. What was the one we had recently, Anatomy of a Fall? I enjoyed this. This was more, I don't want to say more fun, because it's quite a dark movie. But I mean, it's a dark movie in the way 8mm is a dark movie. But it was a more entertaining movie than Anatomy of a Fall.
For me, I think the subtitles thing, I've found out I can watch a movie in subtitles, but It's got to really pull me in. Squid Games is the only... I know that was not a movie, that was a series, but that is the only thing that has ever drawn me in with subtitles that I've managed to watch from start to finish. So I'm not against it. I've just got to find the right movie. And on paper, this is my kind of movie. And I've watched the trailer. You know, I love the way it's filmed. Like every shot that I saw kind of has a darkness.
Looks fantastic, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's really well done. And I actually want to watch it. I think from what you said and from what I've seen in the trailer, it's right up my street, actually.
So, I mean, I will say we can. That's Pascal Plante, I think his name is, the writer-director behind this, and I think absolutely sterling job. Like, there'll be an inevitable English language remake in some form or other. I think down the way. I'm not sure how you would accommodate the French legal system the French-Canadian legal system quite the same way on the more Western Americanized or British side. But I could see an English language remake. Laurie Bobine, as well as who plays Clementine, sort of becomes the sidekick to our increasingly obsessive lead and goes along on the journey with her to an extent. Laurie Babine's performance, I think, is absolutely terrific as well. There's a sort of... She's made to seem more pathetic early on and sort of gaining, self-awareness as time goes by. That's kind of how their narrative arcs sort of align. But the way that she plays that transition, starting off as quite twitchy and weird in comparison. Great stuff. Really, really big fan. Honestly, I actually want to watch this again. I knew nothing about it. I just had a couple of critic friends who said, "Oh, we're going to see that." And we saw that Red Rooms the other night. That was pretty good. I hadn't really heard much about it otherwise. I was genuinely blown away by this. I think this is probably one of the most interesting and entertaining movies I've seen. Like, fascinatingly compelling movies I've seen all year. Like, definitely.
Do you think the subtitles help in a movie like this, because you're kind of, I guess, digesting things differently while reading it and watching it? I always found actually that subtitled films and courtroom dramas, and Anatomy of a Fall proves this as well to an extent, when they are set within a different country's legal system to our own, and its traditions that we don't necessarily quite understand, and because of the natural formality of courtroom settings, things like that, having the subtitles there does allow you to sort of go along with that cultural disconnect, I think, a lot easier. That's something I've always observed anyway. Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense to me. Well, it's on my list now. I really like the look of it. Definitely watch the trailer and then you can decide, because it's out in cinemas from today. Is it any particular cinemas?
Red Rooms, I think you will find this in like you'll find this in a 20-screen Cineworld, I imagine, but definitely occurs on, or your Everyman type cinemas, your art house cinemas, I would say.
Right, well, it's out from today. Look for Red Rooms. Still to come, we'll see what Van thought to Beetlejuice. We've got Acre, and we're going to look at Firebrand in just a second. We'll see what he thought about that next. Stay there. Hello and welcome back to Off Screen. Let's move swiftly on with our next movie then, Firebrand. So this one is more of a history drama, I believe, Van.
Yes, a historical drama would be a bit of a description. So this is the story of Catherine Parr, the final one of Henry VIII's wives. Who is it? Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. And so, yeah, she's the one that survives. And obviously, I've seen the movie, so obviously, I historically know this to be true. So, Alicia Vikander is Catherine Parr in what's effectively a story of the final years of Henry VIII's life, when she was made to serve as regent whilst Henry was away. Serving in conflicts and diplomatic missions and things at the time. He is played for the screen. And I want you to grab your chair as I tell you this, because you're going to take a hit. It's Jude Law. Jude Law is playing. Yeah, that's it, right there, that face. Yep.
How?
I mean, yeah. He's put some weight on. He's very sweaty. I don't know if it's a fat suit, maybe. He's been made up to look like Henry VIII. Yeah. It's Jude Law, my friend.
I'm just seeing him on screen now in the trailer that is muted. I mean, I can't recognise him as Jude Law, to be fair. It doesn't look like Jude Law at all.
Well, do you know what? He's very good in it. He's problematically good in it. So, I say, it is the story of the life of Catherine Parr, the final few years that she was married to Henry VIII, and at the same time having to deal with the living under the sort of oppression of the rules and laws that he's put in place, like the ability to speak Latin, for instance, as regards religious texts, was, had you deemed a heretic. She herself is sort of attempted to be ousted from the monarchy at the time by different political forces that want her out of the way. It's quite the ordeal for anyone. But you know what? Alicia Vikander's here to deliver all the oomph and emotive power you could expect. Have a listen.
Leave us. We'll be alone with my wife. Shut up. Take the King of Spain to our chambers. The Queen must have peace. Quiet. Seymour. Always whispering in corridors, you noticed.
Is that so?
He thinks because his nephew is my son, our heir, and one day he'll be king. In all but name.
It doesn't matter.
God, I need to get some carpets in that place.
That's a given, yeah.
How true to real life is this? Like, is it based on true reality of things that actually happened, or is it completely
This is
made
based
up?
on a novel. Yeah, this is based on a novel that's been written. I think it was written in 5 years ago. It was published in 2019. Name of the novel escapes me, but it's the first English language film to be directed by I think it's Karim Ainuz, who. I believe he was the Argentinian filmmaker who gave it. I think it was The Invisible Life of Eurydice Guzmão, I think, which was this really interesting, really cool movie from a few years ago. I remember quite liking it. I remember talking about it with you, actually, a few years ago now, 3 or 4, I think. But this is his English language debut. And it's very well shot. It's a very handsome movie, great production. You can see that there is, love of the craft in there that's been put to wonderful use. You can hear from the clip that you have a pretty fun Jude Law, as Henry VIII. Like, you can hear it in his voice, can't you? He's having a blast. He's just cutting loose. He's just letting it all hang out and just be Henry VIII. Like, fair play to him. You know what? It's interesting that we've lived to an age now in which we can genuinely say we've seen Jude Law play a convincing Henry VIII.
I know, it's crazy.
Your 40s are terrible, aren't they, man? Oh my God. Anyway.
The thing is, I'm really interested in this because I have never seen a movie of any sort where Henry VIII has been depicted in any way. Like, I really want to watch it because I want to know what Henry VIII was meant to be like.
Did you never see the Ray Winston one? Like,
no.
There was the Ray Winston one. There was, I think, Eric Barner had a shot once. In 2009, there was a movie called The Other Berlin Girl that starred Scarlett Johansson and, oh man, who was it? It's going to bother me. It's Scarlett Johansson. I think it was Natalie Portman, maybe. And that was about Anne Boleyn and her sister, and they were competing for the king, and that was awful casting, putting Barner in there. Anyway, Jude Law, pretty fun, Henry VIII. Obviously, Ray Winston, definitive Henry VIII. It's just there in the casting, isn't it? But the issue with Firebrand, and it's weird to say this one, is Alicia Vikander, who I think just feels like she hasn't really been given any direction. Because I don't think for one second that, Ainuz would intentionally steer her into this as a creative choice, but I'm aware that there's, a certain convention of the time period as regards, level of behavior that you're allowed to display, level of emotion, things like that. But this simply feels like too robotic a performance. And especially when you think of the clip that we just played where she's playing off of Jude Law as Henry VIII. Now, obviously, you can't go that big because otherwise you're kind of not allowing Henry VIII to have the stature that he should have in the scene. But at the same time, it's just simply, there's no real effort to live up to it whatsoever. It doesn't work. And that robotic nature, I think, hampers the film wholeheartedly. You really feel it noticeably come to life in any scene that has Jude Law as Henry VIII. And it's the strangest thing because you and I both know Alicia Vikander's a hell of an actress. Go and check out Ex Machina, in which she literally plays a robot with more power and feeling than this.
She was great in Ex Machina. I love that movie. I would watch it so many times. Absolutely. Would you watch this again?
Absolutely. I don't think I would, to be honest. I think the only way I will ever see this movie again likely will be, I think they'll chop up some clips of Jude Law's Henry VIII scenes and they'll be on TikTok film feeds or something like that. I think that's probably the only way we're likely to remember. I mean, we won't forget the movie because we'll always have those clips and memes, I think. But this is not exactly one for the ages.
Well, if you want to make your own mind up, you can, because Firebrand is out in cinemas from today. Right, still to come, we're going to look at Starve Acre in a moment. And next, I think it's the one that probably most people have been looking forward to this week. So a lot of people intrigued to know what you thought to Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which we'll find out next on Off Screen. Stay there.
And now it's time for a segment we like to call Off Screen Pays the Bills. Hey, Adam.
Hey, Van. So, what's going on?
Ain't nothing going on with the rent, you know how it is. This week, Beetlejuice is back in cinemas, which means you're going to have to explain to your kids who on earth Beetlejuice is. Now, that's hard enough, but have you ever tried to explain what AI is to them? Luckily, our sponsors this week have just the solution with the AI for Kids podcast, the podcast that turns complex AI concepts into fun, engaging episodes perfect for young minds. It's a fantastic way to introduce kids of all ages to the world of AI, without the need to invoke Skynet, Jarvis, or whatever the hell the machines from the Matrix are actually called. Every episode of the AI for Kids podcast features experts in the field, exploring fascinating topics like machine learning, robotics, and the future of AI, all designed to ignite young imaginations. With special guests, exciting projects, and interactive challenges, the podcast keeps learning dynamic and hands-on. Think of it as the perfect blend of education and entertainment. Not only will kids find AI concepts easy and enjoyable, but parents and educators will also appreciate the valuable insights and fun activities that can be done together at home. It's a learning experience for everyone. So whether you've got a curious kid eager to learn about robots and algorithms, or you're a parent wanting to understand the technology shaping their future, the AI for Kids podcast is your go-to resource. So start your child's adventure into the future by tuning in on your favourite podcast platform today with the AI for Kids podcast. And now, on with the show.
Hello and welcome back to Off Screen then. Let's move straight on to our next movie, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which is just annoying. I feel annoyed that I've got to say it twice. I know it's part of the story, and I know you can't just call it Beetlejuice because otherwise that's what the first one was called. But why? It's just silly.
Beetlejuice with a number 2 in it would
well,
be
there
my
you go.
personal choice, but you know, anyway.
Or Beetlejuices.
Beetlejuice, that would work. Deuce, number 2, that would Beetlejuice.
I like it.
Right, so depressingly, I don't know if you're aware of this, buddy, and I hate to be the one that breaks it to you, but it's been 36 years since Beetlejuice.
Jeez, really?
Good God.
Crikey.
I remember it coming out when I was a kid. I was only about five or so, but I remember Beetlejuice sort of being a presence for a few years after its release. And yes, I feel it for you. But so this now sees every member of the family from the previous movie having leapt up a generation. So, you know, you've got Winona Ryder, who was the put-upon daughter in the first movie, is now the mum. The mum from the previous movie, Catherine O'Hara, is now the grandma, and the mopey teen is Jenna Ortega from Wednesday and the last few Scream movies. You know, the very gorgeous young Latina woman that you'll have seen do a very specific dance on TikTok. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting lost in thought. I know what's wrong with me. Anyway,
I have seen that video.
I know you have, buddy. I know you have. So, Grandpa passes away. Conveniently, because actor Jeffrey Jones is not employable in film anymore. So he's killed off screen, and they have the funeral at the house from the first movie. So the entire family returns to the house, where Beetlejuice exacts a new plan to try and find his way back into the world of the living, all the while aiding him in his escaping from an underworld serial killer who's out for his blood, the nastiest creature who's ever lived, who also happens to be, no joke, his ex-wife. Have a listen to this clip of Winona Ryder and her boyfriend Justin Theroux.
So you're saying that someone called Beetlejuice?
Don't say his name. If you say his name 3 times, he will appear.
I know this is a big step for you, but in the words of Dr. Glickman, I'm going to give you the push you need. Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice. Is that
Beetlejuice.
First of all, I want you two kids to know this is a safe space, okay? Feel free to express yourself. Don't be afraid. I sense there's an enabler here, but we'll get to that.
You're a figment of my imagination.
Really? Is this a figment of your imagination?
I mean, it sounds as funny as the first one, I've got to be honest. And, Winona Ryder, how does she measure up in this? Because I haven't said that name for probably 20, 30 years.
Jeez, you work in mainstream radio. You must talk about Stranger Things a lot, surely.
No, it was banned.
No, was it banned? Oh, fair enough. And also, to be fair, she's also Spock's mum to a certain subset of Star Trek fans as well, because she played Amanda Grayson in the reboot Star Trek movie in 2009. But Winona's still great as ever. She's still the queen as Winona. We love Winona. And yeah, she's pretty much the same, as a 40-something mum as she was as a mopey emo teen. Arguably the weakest link in the movie is Jenna Ortega, weirdly, who just can't do mopey emo teen anywhere near as well as Winona did. Good Lord. It's amazing how just blank the performance feels. And I'll be honest, I came away from a lot of it thinking, thank God she's cute, because she's getting sod all else to do in this. So, Monica Bellucci completely wasted as the villain. And that's all part of the big problem of the movie. So, you are very much a Top Gun fan. I know this about you, right?
Yes.
Right. Would you agree, having now seen Top Gun Maverick, that Top Gun 1, in comparison, was kind of plotless, right? Doesn't really have that much of a plot, right?
Yeah.
And then you get to Top Gun 2. We have to train these guys to do this mission. We've got to go and take out the weapons depot. Right, okay. That is the exact difference between Beetlejuice and its sequel. Like, that's the exact contrast and comparison is Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick. This actually feels like it has so much plot because it's running like 3 parallel sort of storylines that all sort of intersect, as it's intended. But they don't quite come together because they're all so underserved. The movie simply isn't big enough for the 3 storylines that are going on there. The entire Monica Bellucci plot, for instance, could be excised from the movie and just saved for a Beetlejuice 3. You know what I mean? It's got that amount of plot to it. You're like, wait, there's a serial killer who can kill already dead people by like removing the last bits of dead from them so that they are then nothing. And she's also Beetlejuice's ex, and she's going to go Cape Fear on him. That's a banging idea for a movie. It's a bit of a wasted idea if it's a third of a movie, though. And then you have... Yeah, and then you say there's another plot I don't really spoil for it. But they do this in a few different ways, and you feel like the movie's too overstuffed. And also, it wastes one of the best things about the movie, which is Willem Dafoe. Willem Dafoe shows up as the chief of police, the chief of detectives in the afterlife. But the joke is that he's like a real-world movie cop. He was an action star who starred in movies playing a tough guy cop, so when he went to the afterlife, he had to actually be a cop. That's his job in hell. I love this gag because Willem Dafoe just goes full tilt boogie on it, hams it up endlessly. Now, Beetlejuice himself, exactly as fun as he ever was, he's not really got that much more to do, arguably, in terms of screen time than he did the last time around. There's maybe 10 minutes more Beetlejuice. The film, however, does come to a screeching halt with a needlessly overlong musical number. That has to be said.
Oh, no.
Yes.
That's frustrating.
Yes. And I, on the one hand, can understand how it fits into Tim Burton, and we've got to get to him, I know, how it fits into Tim Burton's very self-stylized goth philosophy and aesthetic. I can sort of see it, but it's one of those things where I think asking the entire audience to ride along with it was a bit much for the amount of time that it was done. If it had been half the length, maybe you would have maybe got away with it. Like truncated that musical number down half the length, maybe. But I feel like it's overdone. And then there's the actual production and the Tim Burton of it all. Now, this, say, on the story level, doesn't have the ramshackle looseness of the first one. On the production level, it doesn't either. It looks too good, for lack of a better term. Do you know what I mean? Beetlejuice looks kind of crap, right? That's polished. The fun of Beetlejuice. Yeah, this is too polished. This is like a nice, crisp 4K movie where every colour is bright and vivid and you can see the full spectrum of human vision. You know, it's made for Dolby Vision. And you're like, oh, God. And you're like, it's Beetlejuice, man. Rough it up a bit. And I thought that let it down. But having said that, it's got the bombastic, Danny Elfman-y score and the cinematography and everything. But I just that aesthetic just feels like really, would this not have been just a fun throwback to actually, on a production level, you guys could have had fun doing this, just take it back in time, give us some of that old school feeling with it. It's like the new Alien one, Romulus, how they make a big show out of using puppets, like robots, for the facehuggers. And all right, it looks naff, but I prefer it to naff CGI because I love knowing that amount of love and care went into it. And Beetlejuice had that, and this kind of doesn't so much in the same way. It's like we just rented a house. We didn't make it look like a theatre stage this time. And I do kind of miss that about it. But Tim Burton fans are in for a treat because I actually, and I haven't said this yet on the film at all, I think this might be the best Tim Burton movie since Sleepy Hollow.
Wow. Okay.
I haven't genuinely liked a Tim Burton movie since Sleepy Hollow. To be fair, that's a caveat I have to drop in there. I think Sleepy Hollow was the last good one, and everything he's made has sucked since, give or take a Big Fish or moments a Dumbo, Big Eyes maybe. But I do think it's the most quote unquote Tim Burton movie of standard that we have had since Sleepy Hollow. I think if you're going with what I would describe as quintessentially Tim Burton movies, you'd stop at Sleepy Hollow, but now you would add this on the end as well. So I think the Tim Burton fans are really going to love this.
Is he in this in any sense? Because doesn't he quite often do a cameo somewhere in his movies?
No, he's just doing the thing he normally does here where he casts his girlfriend in a major role.
Enough said. If you want to go and check out his girlfriend in a major role, you can.
Can we just take that on for a moment? Because I feel like we as a species don't give Tim Burton the credit that the man truly deserves. Everyone thinks of Tim Burton as this masterful goth artiste, right? And that's his legendary thing in life. No. That is not what Tim Burton should be recognised for. Tim Burton should be recognised for having the greatest game of any man ever. Like the man is out there killing it.
Enough said. Right, so if you want to check out Beetlejuice yourself, you can. It's in cinemas from today. Right, our final movie to look at, Starve Acre. We'll see what Van thought about that one next. Stay there. Hello and welcome back to Offscreen for one last ride. We are going to look at the movie Starve Acre, which is out in cinemas from today. This is a folk horror drama. What is one of those?
It's a horror drama that basically relies a lot on sort of regional folklore. In this case, I think it's quite Yorkshire-y. Seems quite Yorkshire. It seems like Matt Smith's putting on a patronising Yorkshire accent.
Hey up!
Quite through it. Don't. I get enough of that at home, please. Apparently, I can't say the word up. So up, but up. Apparently, I go to Yorkshire on the word up, but which means I can never sing Rick Astley again ever. But so anyway, I think this is a Yorkshire folklore based. It is a new movie from Daniel Kokotajo, whose work I think he's only directed one film called Apostasy. I think it was Apostasy in about 2016 or 2017, which I didn't get to review at the time, so I presume wasn't given that big of a release. So second feature film. And as writer-director as well, follows Matt Smith as the patriarch of the family, Morfydd Clark from St. Maud. From St. Maud a couple of years ago, a really great horror movie a couple of years ago. So Morfydd Clark in there. I think she's also in the Lord of the Rings show now as well. Like Rings of Power that's on, I think, on Amazon Prime.
No point asking me. You'd know. Never seen
You're more plugged into current consciousness than me. So, idyllic sort of rural family. The parents are Matt Smith, Morfydd Clark. They've got a young son. Matt Smith is a local teacher and archaeologist. And their son starts acting unusual, just starts acting odd. And it leads Matt Smith in his capacity as owing to his previous archaeology profession, to investigate this old oak tree that's on their grounds that comes with all of these legends and myths. And as soon as he starts to sort of, begin this insight into the history of this tree, strange things come a-calling. Have a listen.
In return for the triquetra sacrifice, it's some sort of local folklore.
You shouldn't be in here.
This says, followers gathered at Starve Acre. 3 of them died. A child, woman, and a man. They were sacrificed for the dandelion to bud. It's all the same as Mrs. Ford's jargon. And Richard's dad was writing about it too.
The gods are just, the gods are fair. They let Jack free and into our care. The price we pay is 1, 2, 3. To let joy pour from the whistling tree.
I don't know. I find this kind of movie a bit cheesy, if I'm honest.
I mostly found it dull, if I'm honest. It is one of those, like, I can see it, you get away with a lot in the marketing on this one, but I feel like you're selling a movie that's not quite there. There's a lot more art housey horror than I think you'd hope, given the fact that it stars Matt Smith and Morfydd Clark. To be honest,
yeah.
This screened at the LFF last October, I believe, because I narrowly missed out on seeing it. But so it's been on the shelf for a little while now, like being handled between distributors and things like that, being sold to different labels. I see this as a struggle in any capacity other than streaming. Like I think you'll find this, you'll find a home on Shudder where it will be accepted amongst the aficionados, I think. I personally found that it was more of a visual piece, more of a mood piece, than anything that would particularly play well in a multiplex on Saturday night, for instance. But then again, you would argue that I don't think it's intended to be. I think it is intended to be exactly what it is. And Matt Smith, to be fair, absolutely relishes and leaps at the opportunity to effectively go into moments of his own personal Jack Torrance in The Shining. You know, it's only there in flashes, in bursts, but it works really well. And Morfydd Clark is never bad value for money, to be fair, and she gives a really great performance here. I don't think it's a bad film by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's one that you most certainly have to be in a specific mood for. And I think that mood has to be right. I want pensive, dramatic horror, rather than I want you to keep going with the atmosphere and the chills and the jumps, you know, and the outright horror. You know, it stands in a very different horrific stance to, for instance, Red Rooms that we were talking about earlier, which was horrifying in some of the psychological aspects it went down, but also in terms of just the graphic horror that was implied. Whereas here, this is more, I don't know how to say it, intensity-driven horror. This is a lot through intense stares, you know what I mean?
So there's no kind of jump scares in this or anything like that, then?
No, there are one or two, don't get me wrong. There's one or two, but they are played in a much more cold, thud-like fashion than anything else. I mean, there's a moment right at the end I actually really loved. It was really well, I have to say it was really well done. And Matt Smith, just flawless execution.
The front cover draws me in because I quite like that with the rabbit or hare with the hand on it. Like, yeah. What's the hare or the rabbit got to do with this?
So it's all tied into the sort of pagan, origins of what's behind the tree. And I don't want to get into it. It becomes plot spoilers, but there's a lot of use of that imagery throughout the film. You spot it here, there, and everywhere. It's a big part of the sort of visual language of the movie. Besides, It's worth a look, but it's what I would describe as a weeknight horror, not a weekend horror.
Absolutely makes sense. Well, you can see it a weeknight if you want, because it's out from today. Today's a weeknight. Starve Acre, go and check it out if you fancy it. Right, before we go then, shall we just have a quick look at what we've got coming up next week?
Yes, so next week, and I was just looking, because I think was it Iranian? I think this was Iranian. Hang on, what's called? It says Persian, so I'm going to say Iranian. So we've got the first movie is My Favourite Cake, which I really like the sound of, right? So this is about a 70-year-old woman, like a widowed grandma, who just decides, the hell with it, I'm getting back in the dating game, and just decides to enjoy all the freedoms of the modern dating age. But like at age 70, I'm like, I'm down. That sounds wonderful. I'm in. Yes, I like it. Pour that one in me. Yes, good times ahoy. We've also got The Critic, which I want to say that's Bill Nye, I'm mostly annoyed that someone's used the title The Critic, because it always puts me on edge. But it's so it's Ian McKellen, not Bill Nye. So Ian McKellen, Gemma Arterton, and Leslie Manville. And it's quite a high-profile Brit thriller for next, or Brit drama for next week. But it's about a theatre critic. Who I believe takes on like his boss who's trying to sack him, but it's this like tense drama. Just weird seeing Gemma Arterton back in a film. I feel like it's been a minute, right? When was the last time you saw Gemma Arterton in a film?
A long time ago. I couldn't even tell you what film.
Long time ago, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, gotta be ages, right? Yeah. Anyway, what else we got? Next week we also have Lee, which is the new movie with Kate Winslet. I've got to do a whole thing next week on Talk TV about it. And also, thanks to that premiere, we couldn't access the spoons in Leicester Square the other night when we were trying to pre-game for Beetlejuice. But anyway, thank God for the Imperial, always a good backup. And last but certainly by no means least, a film I have seen. I went and saw this last night. I had a banging time. I can't wait to talk to you about this. It's a remake of a Danish film from a year ago. We've got the screener for the Danish film. I'm going to watch that. I had managed to have missed it until now. I've now seen a remake, which is also entitled Speak No Evil, and stars James McAvoy, Scoot McNairy, Ashton Franciosi, and Mackenzie Davis. And it's conversation worthy. It's definitely conversation. I mean, he's based his performance on Andrew Tate. Like, he said this in interviews, and if he hadn't, you'd have immediately spotted it. Like, it's very brazen. But yeah, can't wait to talk to you about that. Speak No Evil. I'm going to watch the original Danish version at some point before we talk about it next week. I can't wait to see that either. But yeah, we're in for a good one next week, I think.
Great. Looking forward to hearing what you think of that. That is, of course, all we have time for this time round. We will be back next week with Offscreen. Until then, I've been Adam Ball.
I've been Van Connor, and we shall return.